The fight within the CBI between its chief Alok Verma and its number 2 officer, that's a special director, Rakesh Asthana, has now escalated to such an extent that we are seeing arrests and also searches taking place between the two teams, Team Asthana and Team Verma. What happened today was that because it has escalated to such an extent that the Prime Minister has stepped in. He in fact summoned both officers to come and meet him. And so the Prime Minister now has to decide whether he gets rid of both these officers who are leveling allegations against each other of bribery. Rakesh Asthana has been booked in an FIR of corruption of taking bribes of up to 3 crores in order to influence a case. In the same time, Alok Verma has been accused by Rakesh Asthana of taking 2 crores bribe by the same person. So at the end of it, who is speaking the truth? Is this what should have been? How should a situation like this be handled by the Prime Minister? What are the legalities that go into removing a CBI director? Remember, according to the Vineet Narayan judgment, a CBI director has a fixed tenure of 2 years and therefore can't be removed. So if the Prime Minister wants to step in, can he really remove Alok Verma, who is the CBI director and stays in that position till at least January 2019? What are the provisions that are there in order to remove him? Or will the Prime Minister go in for the easier option, remove in this case Rakesh Asthana, who the opposition calls the Prime Minister's blue-eyed boy? Why? Because Rakesh Asthana used to serve in Gujarat Police. He has served as Vadodara and also Surat Police Commissioner. He was in charge of the Godhra probe. He was also in various positions in the Gujarat Police. In fact, he was one of the officers that was specially handpicked by the government to come into CBI as part of all those Gujarat cadre officers who moved to Delhi when Prime Minister Modi came to power here in the capital. So what happens over there? Of course, remember, Rakesh Asthana was also promoted to number 2 or special director in the CBI in also unusual circumstances when the CBI then number 2, R.K. Datta, was unceremoniously removed overnight. A position was created for him in MHA and they said that they were promoting him. In effect, really, they wanted to make him the interim chief. So it's always been controversial. But what's happened now is that the fight that happened between the 2 officers, Rakesh Asthana and Alok Verma, has just escalated. The Prime Minister's intervened today, but here are some of the other things that have happened today. First of all, Rakesh Asthana's investigating officer, Devender Kumar, who has been made a co-accused with him in this particular case, he has been arrested. I repeat, the Deputy Superintendent of Police, who was the investigating officer in the Moin Qureshi case, and the case basically relates to influencing various CBI officials in order to change the way the case is being probed. Devender Kumar, the main IO in that case, who worked with Rakesh Asthana as his boss, has been arrested. Why has he been arrested? Because he had also taken down a statement from the main accused in this, who said that the CBI director had got a bribe of 2 crore rupees. Now, the CBI today said that this claim and this statement, on which basis Rakesh Asthana had complained to the CVC and the Cabinet Secretary against his boss, the CBI chief, that was completely fraudulent. And that day, this person whose statement has been taken, which is Satish Sana, he wasn't even in Delhi, he was in Hyderabad. So it's a very complicated case, but what we are going to do over the next half hour is speak to experts, people who've dealt with CBI and the police and get to answer some of these questions. What are the options that the Prime Minister has? What are the options before the judiciary? What can happen now when people are being arrested? And remember, one more development that happened apart from Devinder Kumar's arrest today was the fact that two other officers who are part of Rakesh Asthana's team, that's Joint Director Sai Manohar and also Superintendent of Police Jagrup Meena, their rooms have said to be recce'd or searched. Recce is the term that is being used, and the officer who did the recce is Mr. Bassi. But recce is basically another form of, or a polite word of saying that their rooms were raided. So you have all the officers who are with Rakesh Asthana, them being under the scanner, their officers being searched. So let's just speak about this. In studio, we have Vineet Narayan, journalist and activist. Vineet Narayan is the person behind the famous Vineet Narayan judgment, which basically brought about the fixed tenure of the CBI director. So if we want to know how the CBI director can be removed after this judgment, well, he's the person who can tell us about that. Prashant Bhushan is also senior advocate, and he's the person who challenged the appointment of Rakesh Asthana as special director because of the circumstances that it took place in, because of the fact that R.K. Datta was removed overnight. Prashant Bhushan is the person who challenged it in Supreme Court. At that time, of course, the Supreme Court didn't take much note of this matter, and nobody from the CBI wanted to come because they're, of course, in turmoil. So we have former IPS officer M.N. Singh to tell us how the police cadres, the police officers are looking at what's happening in CBI. Remember, this is uncharted territory. We've never seen anything like this happen before. And so everyone is kind of learning as they go along, because we've never had press releases being given by the CBI against its own number 2 officials, and they having to rely on somebody else to get their word out. So it's literally a war within. And today what we've seen is that officials are getting arrested for being part of one team and the other team also facing consequences. So charges on both sides. Who is right? That's something the court will decide. We can only talk about the various options. Vineet Narayan, first to you. The Prime Minister has met both these officers to get their view. It looks like, you know, they both now, if you go by the kind of complaints they've both made, they both say the other person is corrupt. They both say that the other person took bribes because of Moin Qureshi in order to influence the case. Now, we saw one other CBI director, of course, being involved in a case before. That was also Moin Qureshi, and that was also the entire cases. That's Ranjit Sinha. But we've never seen fighting among themselves in such a manner between the number 1 and number 2. Now, I just wanted to ask you, if the CBI director has a 2-year tenure, is there any way he can be removed? Because that's the only way many people feel that the case can be resolved.
Well, it can't be removed because of the binding in that judgment, but there are options. For example, the Home Secretary, on the instruction of Cabinet Secretary, can ask him to proceed on leave and give charge to someone else.
The Home Secretary will.
I mean, the Cabinet Secretary can ask Home Secretary, who in turn can ask Director CBI to go on leave till his retirement, and the charge can be given to some other officer, additional secretary. If they give charge to Rakesh Asthana, it will again be a controversy. So some third person can be brought in to run the show. So you are not actually curtailing the term, but you are, you know, having an easy way out for him to.
But how can you have the Home Secretary ask him to be removed, because the CBI
not
said
remove.
to be
I'm not saying remove.
Go on leave.
Go
but
on
how can the Home Secretary ask him, because isn't the CBI on paper totally autonomous, and that's why even their appointment is done by a 3-member committee, which is the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India.
Here, Prashant would be able to tell more because from the legal point of view. But here, the thing is that there are reports. The IPS lobby is divided into 2 camps. So there are reports that the way this whole process has taken up till now has done several violations of administrative procedures. So on the basis of that, PMO can ask that you have violated these things, so you must proceed. But my concern is deeper than that. You see, whole thing started long back. Initially, when Prashant took up the matter, then later on, Alok Verma objected, and then Rakesh Asthana went and filed a complaint. This should not have come to this level. It is making complete mockery of CBI. Both the guys are fighting like kids, making allegations against each other. The dirty linen is being washed in public. Well, had it been for the betterment of the agency, one would have appreciated it. But it looks more like a camp war.
Yeah, you say fighting like kids, but what we are actually seeing is that kids don't really have the arsenal of the state's might, which is having raids and FIRs and criminal investigations being launched, which is what we are seeing over here. Rakesh Asthana's complaint against Alok Verma lying with the CVC and the Cabinet Secretary. Alok Verma, of course, his complaint has become an FIR, and now that's a criminal case as well. Prashant Bhushan, what is the legal procedure over here? Can the Prime Minister go ahead and sack both of them, or are his hands tied now because of the Vineet Narayan judgment?
Well, the director can't be removed by the government. The director can only be removed by that same appointing committee which selected him, which means the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. That's the security of tenure which has been given to him, and until that same appointing or the selecting committee decides to remove him or suspend him, etc., he can't be removed by the government, neither by the Prime Minister, nor by the Home Minister, nor by anybody else. However, in this particular case, we must not make a moral equivalence between the present director and this special director, merely because they have both made allegations against each other does not mean that there is any equivalence. In this particular case, the Prime Minister first, or the Prime Minister's office first, appointed this Rakesh Asthana as the acting director when he was not at all eligible. This was in complete violation of the procedure prescribed by the law and by the Supreme Court. We petitioned the court against that, and on that petition he was thereafter removed, and a regular director was selected by this selection committee consisting of these three persons. Mr. Alok Verma was selected, and even thereafter this Rakesh Asthana was then made a special director, despite the fact that the director had pointed out at that very time that the CBI is itself investigating a very serious case against him, that 5,000 crore money laundering scam of Sterling Biotech, where the diary recovered from the Sterling Biotech people shows 4 payments of about 4 crores having been made to this Rakesh Asthana. Moreover, his daughter's wedding was held at the Sandesara's farmhouse, Sandesara, who owned Sterling Biotech and who have run away from the country. His son worked with Sterling Biotech. In these circumstances, it was totally improper to have appointed him as a special director. In fact, the director had pointed out that he has no business to even remain within the CBI. But because the government wants to use the CBI politically, they wanted to have their own man there in a very critical position to be able to handle or blackmail opposition leaders, etc., etc. He was inducted as a special director, given some lot of very sensitive cases, etc., and this has now resulted in a situation where he is facing as many as 6 CBI investigations itself. His own subordinate officer has been arrested for having fabricated a 161 statement of this complainant, who and that fabricated statement was used by Rakesh Asthana in order to make a complaint against the director Alok Verma. So it's a rather sordid state of affairs. The only thing that the government can do is to sack Rakesh Asthana. They can certainly sack Rakesh Asthana, suspend him or remove him from the CBI, and that's what they ought to do after having made this huge mistake of pushed him through.
Very, very significant. So, Prashant Bhushan, you are saying that in this particular case, it's not at par. Rakesh Asthana's problems and faults seem much more magnified and much more serious in magnitude than Alok Verma's. MN Singh, if I can just come to you, one of the things that Vineet Narayan said was there are various ways that both have violated service rules. What, according to you, is inappropriate? Well, there must be many, but can you just take us through what is very, very unusual behavior of these two IPS officers?
वॉइस गिर गया, वॉइस ड्रॉप हो गया.
Voice drop.
Mr. Singh, can you hear me? I wanted to ask you what you thought of the way.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, Sunatra, in between, I think your voice dropped, but I entirely agree with the earlier two panelists that whatever is going on within CBI today is very disturbing, as it severely dents the image of CBI, the premier investigating agency, and people lose trust in such an important organization. And therefore, my prescription is that because both of them have made, the topmost two officials have made corruption allegations against each other, and it has come in the public domain, the first step that the government should take is that both of them should be sacked immediately, and not only these two should be removed, but the CBI needs to undergo a complete overhaul. A lot more officers also need to be removed from the CBI, because the CBI image in the last few years has taken a very severe beating because of serious allegations of corruption against the earlier directors also. And now how to remove the CBI director is the issue. I don't think it is so difficult. The CBI director can be asked to proceed on leave. He has just about a few months to retire, and this Asthana must immediately be sacked. And then a new person should be brought in, and the whole thing should be looked into as to how these fellows have been. My point is that the appointment of Asthana as the special director in CBI itself was a big mistake. It has not only dented the image of the CBI, but also it impacts on the image of the Honorable Prime Minister, because Asthana is said to be very close to the Prime Minister. I don't know whether he is so close or not close, but this is the general perception in the public, and therefore it severely impacts the image of the Prime Minister also. And since he is also in charge of the CBI comes under him directly, under the Ministry of Personnel. So these two officers must be removed, and all those officers who have been there and all that must also be removed. CBI needs a complete overhaul. Now, I will also say that the CBI, there have been a lot of wheeling dealing in the appointments of CBI directors. We have seen earlier this somebody called Qureshi, who is a meat exporter and all that, some kind of a go-between and all that, and now open allegations being made that the money was being paid in Dubai and things like that. I think that entire selection process needs a thorough review. The way the people manage to get themselves posted in high positions in the CBI is very sad and very bad, and therefore that entire appointment procedure needs to be reviewed. I would also make a point that today the CBI does not work under any specific law. There is an old law made during the British time, the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, under which the CBI works, and the purpose of that law was entirely different when it was enacted by the British. There is no specific law which governs the functioning of the central agencies like the CBI, the Intelligence Bureau and the RAW. It is high time that the government considers enacting appropriate law under which these agencies should function, and there should be a proper accountability platform.